I'm your host, Shannon Madden. I'm joined with Doug Phillips, my co-host and producer. And we've got quite an exciting show lined up this evening, I do believe. Doug, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm good. I'm ready to talk some Wisconsin Notre Dame.
Yeah, we've already are joined on the big podcast here with two very, very frequent contributors, probably our most frequent contributors if you really want to get down to it. Timothy Bailey.
How's it going?
He'll be representing Wiscy this evening, and of course Sean Devine, Notre Dame faithful, Fighting Irish, go Irish.
Hey gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Well, I can't complain a single bit. So yeah, this I guess is probably the most exciting matchup we've got going on this week. I would think. Wisconsin versus Notre Dame. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't feel as exciting as it once did. Maybe because of Wisconsin's misstep early in the season. I don't know.
Neither team have looked as good as we would have probably thought during the offseason. That doesn't mean that they can't be as good as we think they can be, but they haven't looked the part yet. And so I think that's definitely hurted the excitement for the matchup for sure.
Yeah, Sean, you of course being a Notre Dame fan, Notre Dame is kind of looking, like Notre Dame does in good seasons. Just puts in just enough that they're able to walk away with the win so far.
Well, I think Doug can attest to this. I said this year is a rebuilding year for the Irish, and I had our floor at 8-4 and our ceiling at 10-2, and the wins thus far. A, they were expected. B, they didn't get there the way they were expected. They've looked kind of ugly at times, but I said get to this game unbeaten and we'll see what happens. I did have this game pegged as a loss before the season started, and the betting experts agree. I think Notre Dame's a 5.5-point dog last I looked. So a little trepidation going into this.
6.5 now.
6.5 now, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's a big spread.
It really is, and it's kind of surprising because Wisconsin hasn't really shown anybody anything to indicate that and no matter how lethargic Notre Dame, be frank about it, I mean, this isn't the best looking Notre Dame team we've seen.
I'll be honest. I think Notre Dame figures it out and they win the game, to be quite honest with you.
I do too.
What I'm most interested in is the line of scrimmage battle. The line of scrimmage battle is always an interesting one in a game like this. Notre Dame has 3 notably good backs. They have a rotation of 3 guys. Now, their offensive line, hasn't quite gelled the way that we have seen Notre Dame offensive lines in the past. Will this be the week they do? It would certainly be a great timing for that. I'm sure Sean would agree.
It'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. But here's the thing. The one thing Notre Dame has done this year is, and they'll pay dividends long term for them, they found ways to win in games that they didn't play their best or they were close contests. And this is going to be another game that's going to be a close contest. Notre Dame's found ways to win these games. Notre Dame went to overtime against Florida State. Certainly Wisconsin's better than all the teams they've faced, okay? I just want to preface that. But when you find ways to win games like that early on and you learn by winning rather than learning through a loss, it just pays off. We see this across college football in a lot of games. We look at, for example, 2016 Clemson, who went on to win a national championship. They struggled against Troy early on. NC State, all they had to do is make like a 20-yard field goal, and they beat them, right? They had a crazy game against Florida State, and surviving those close games helped them learn quite a lot about themselves, which allowed them to play well even when they were down 14 points against Alabama in the national championship. And I'm not saying Notre Dame's going to win the national championship. I wouldn't bet on that at all. But I'm simply saying that Notre Dame, being in the fire like they have early, they have some experience now that Wisconsin doesn't. They also have 3 games under their belt. That's an advantage early in the year, in my opinion, to have a couple more games in than your opponent.
Well, I certainly I agree with Tim on on the first part, the line of scrimmage is going to dictate this game on both sides of the ball. One, can Notre Dame's offensive line finally kind of figure it out and maybe make some strides in the running game, which they haven't been able to thus far. First and foremost. Number two, can Notre Dame's defensive line handle Wisconsin's offensive line and force them into third and long into passing situations? Because if that is the case, the strength of the Notre Dame defense this year, I don't know if you've watched, is the secondary. The secondary is very good. It's led by the All-American, preseason All-American. I think if he keeps playing the way he is, he's going to be an All-American. And safety Kyle Hamilton will probably be the first safety taken in the draft. Forcing Wisconsin to pass will play into Notre Dame's hand. And vice versa for Wisconsin. We're forced to pass. That's going to be trouble. So it's really going to be won or lost in the line of scrimmage. If Wisconsin can get their running game going, I think we're in for a long day. Because Notre Dame's just not really built for that style, that Big Ten brawl kind of style. They're built more for the speed game. That's kind of what Kelly's been recruiting going forward for those matchups with Clemson or Alabama, etc., where speed is primarily the difference maker. If Notre Dame does get down early, don't be surprised to see Tyler Buckner, the freshman, come in. And he's already come in one game and played well. So, and he brings
now, and he's because he had a hamstring injury. What was that? The Purdue game. Is he going to be back in full force for this game? I know that was a kind of a question mark. It seemed like the language that Kelly's using is that he's going to have him ready.
Everybody is ready to go for Notre Dame, minus the left guard Mike Carmody. If he's not ready, then we'll have redshirt freshman Josh Tugg put in there. But yeah, quarterbacks we're good to go. Running backs and wide receivers good to go. I agree with Tim. I think it's gonna be a low scoring. Whoever scores last will probably win kind of a game. And another side note: this game is being played at Soldier Field, and albeit Soldier Field's been renovated back in 2002. Historically, both old Soldier Field and new Soldier Field, Notre Dame is unbeaten. They are 10 wins, no losses, and 2 ties in that building. Despite what our friends at Northwestern want to say, Notre Dame is Chicago's team.
Give us a score prediction, both of you guys.
I'm gonna say Notre Dame wins 21-17.
That's kind of funny because that's what I was going to say, but just not to say the same thing, I'll say Notre Dame wins 17-13. Low scoring game. Jack Cohn revenge game. I mean, and I want to preface that Jack Cohn has played extremely well based on the expectations of what Jack Cohn was coming into the year. How much does Jack Cohn, want to, put towards Wisconsin, for what went down there. Because obviously Graham Mertz hasn't come in and lit the world on fire, since his week 1 performance last year. So,
yeah, I mean, it's if Notre Dame loses, I mean, there's still a lot of opportunity left out there for them.
I agree with that.
To maybe make a New Year's Six bowl game.
This is a bigger game for Wisconsin than Notre Dame, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we're gonna run.
Appreciate the time, and thanks for having us on.
Hulu has live TV. Hulu has live sports?
Well, yes. Hulu does have live sports.
Time's up. I need your answer now.
Hulu has live game shows.
Correct. Hulu also has...
Hulu has live dating shows.
With over 75 live channels.
I choose Hulu. Woo! Hulu.
Flip like cable, stream like Hulu. Time to have Hulu plus live TV.
Today in college football history.
27 years ago today, number 17 Washington defeated number 6 Miami 38-20. This brought an end to Miami's NCAA record 58-game home win streak. Washington scored 25 points in the third quarter on the way to their upset victory. At the conclusion of the 1994-95 season, Coach Dennis Erickson resigned as the head coach at Miami to accept the head coach's position for the Seattle Seahawks of the NFL.
Congratulations, you lost and your team sucks. Donkey Balls is brought to you by the Smacking Off Amazon store. Visit it today at smackology.life/Amazon. And thank you in advance for your support.
Visit the Smacking Off the Podcast Amazon store for awesome collegiate apparel. And help to support the podcast by making a purchase. Go to smackology.life/Amazon.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo. Narcisetto Adogino d'amor, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto Adogino d'amor.
Welcome college football fans to another weekly installment of
Congratulations, you lost.
And your team sucks. Please welcome our resident psychology ST Timothy Bailey.
An unrelated question I have real quick. Is Georgia Tech as good as the Clemson fans are saying?
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. I just had to do that.
Oh, my gosh. You score. It's a good thing your defense held up in the red zone because I'm just going to. And then you fumble at the end there and you almost give up the touchdown anyway. Holy cow. What a crazy game that was, to say the least. Oh, man. Dabo Sweeney almost found his name on this list. They almost reimagined the Clemsoning title here for a second, didn't they? This weekend.
It seems to be oozing back, even though you can't really count the Georgia game, I don't guess, but I don't know. You feel like it's coming that we're going to be using that term again before the end of the year.
It does have that feel. We got a long way to go, and obviously Clemson is a talented roster. But the talented players don't seem to be playing, which is the weird part to me.
They're not. You mean they're not on the field?
Yeah, no, they're not on the field. They're still playing the same dudes, like on defense. They're still playing they're still wanting to play. I know that some of the guys have missed some time, but they're still playing the James Skalskys and the Tanner Muses of the world and the Jake Venables and. The guys that literally wouldn't start at any of the other elite programs or get much playing time at all.
That's weird.
Just saying. But no, Clemson's going to definitely have to self-search. I expect that they'll probably fix a lot of their issues by the end of the year, but will they do it before they suffer a loss? I can't say that I think so at this point. Manny Diaz is going to be the first name on this list. So, you wonder how Manny Diaz avoids this list for so long this year. He's not a Jim Harbaugh or a James Franklin who we had to start excluding in the past because they were just on it so damn often. And Malzahn as well was another. But, let's be honest. From start to finish, this guy's never been a head coach material at all. He should never have gotten the Miami job, let alone the Temple job that he originally took before he got the opportunity to go to Miami, which, if you get the opportunity to go to Miami instead of Temple, you'd obviously take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Manny Diaz is not the guy, okay? We're, 3 years into this experiment. Miami looks just the same as they always do, but they're producing some NFL talent, so they've got players there that are pretty good. They had, 3 defensive ends last year taken in the draft within the first 2 rounds. That didn't really seem to matter much as they still couldn't even beat Oklahoma State in their bowl game. Miami is not in a good spot, okay? In the first week, they lost to Alabama really badly. I suspected it was because Miami wasn't very good and also because Bama is a good team. My suspicions that Miami wasn't very good came to fruition, unfortunately, because I do root for Derek King. Week 2,
They nearly lose the game to Appalachian State, where they trailed for a good portion of the second half, and you're like, okay, well, it's college football, survive and advance, especially this year with some crazy results we're seeing. And then they have their doors blown off by a northern team in Florida weather in September, and that can't happen.
No, I totally agree. And I don't know. This is Manny Diaz's Miami Hurricanes. They have a 13-0 loss to Louisiana Tech on their resume as well in his first season, which is, I mean, that was
following a loss to FIU.
That was a head shaker right there. But as we see, it's more of the same.
It is, and last year, they looked a lot improved, so you wanted to give them a chance. They were an improved team last year. They were pretty good. They weren't great. They were pretty good last year. And they lost those defensive ends, and Derek King doesn't look quite the same off his injury, and this team just doesn't have any structure.
Have you noticed that a lot of the teams that were bad last year, though, they mark it down as COVID? There's that COVID asterisk to everything. So, truthfully, and you hear a lot about Alabama. They won the national championship last year, but it was a COVID year. If you're going to throw out the bad years, you got to throw the good ones out too. I mean, you really do. You got to say at least that it was an oddity, maybe, because it was a COVID year.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it makes sense. One of the magic tricks I like to do to mess with my wife, and she doesn't get it yet, is I have her pick a stack. Pick stacks of cards until I find her card, right?
Mm-hmm.
She'll pick if she picks the stack the cards in, well, then I'm going to keep that stack and I'm going to get rid of the other stacks, right? But if she picks other stacks, then I'm going to throw those stacks out. And we kind of have done that with the COVID stuff, because it's like, how impressive is it to be so resilient during a COVID year, looking at how many teams struggled, but then on the flip side, mark off, the COVID years for teams that did bad, and it's like, you can't quite have it both ways. Mm-hmm. I think there's a little nuance with it. I thought Alabama was really impressive last year, for example, but I also have given passes to teams like Minnesota, especially those Big Ten and Pac-12 schools, but because their conferences handled their situations so poorly that hell, half of them didn't even expect to play football, and then suddenly they were. So.
Right, exactly, and that can't be good on the mind of a 18 to 22-year-old.
No way, man.
Think there's no season, and all of a sudden there is a season. I mean, yeah, everybody's like, well, they'll be really excited now, but yeah, it's a mental preparation thing, and I don't know. It's not good to shift gears that quickly.
Absolutely. Football's a physically demanding and emotionally and mentally taxing sport. You've really got to be honed for it, and that's what those off seasons are for. And those off seasons are ass whoopings. People don't understand. Like, they don't have two-a-days, so the coaches just made it 2 times harder during the day. But moving on to the next one, I have Tom Allen. Okay, now a lot of people are like, Tom Allen, are you crazy? But for some reason, people just think Tom Allen is like Jesus Christ walking, because last year Indiana was a decent team, right? But Indiana wasn't really that good last year, okay? Indiana won one game against a team that finished with an over 500 record. It was the 4-3 Wisconsin team.
Yep.
Okay? That's the only win in Tom Allen's entire career versus a team with over a 500 record at the end of the year. In his career. But people are talking about him being Big Ten Coach of the Year and this and that. And you know what? Okay, well, show me something. Okay, it's the 8th ranked Cincinnati team. Okay, but it's still a Group of 5 team. You have them down by double digits at your place. You got to pull that one out, right? If you're as good of a coach as people say you are, you gotta bring that one in, don't you?
I agree.
So,
and
not a lot to harp on there, but
were they at home? Trying to remember.
I believe that was a home game. I could be wrong. Let me double check.
I've got it up already. I'm pulling it. Let's see. They were home.
They were home.
Yeah.
It was a home game. Yeah, you got to bring that one in. I mean, you just got to. If you're the coach you say you are and your team's as good as you say you are, and the Iowa game was an aberration like, we were hearing, then that's a game you got to win.
Yep, agreed.
You lead by 14 points, you got to win that game. Now, it'd be different if the game, you didn't have a lead in it. Maybe I could be a little bit more forgiving, but that's an opportunity there, and you kind of let it go. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Pat Narduzzi. He's the head coach of Pitt, okay? Pitt is actually a pretty talented team, really under the radar, but they've got a lot of good players over there, okay? They're usually very good on defense. And then, they've got a decent quarterback right now in Pickett. They've got some good things going for them, okay? But they lost a game to something called an Eastern Michigan, I believe, this week.
Mm-hmm.
In a shootout performance.
Yeah, that's 44-41, I believe.
Yeah, that's just poor discipline. Okay, I mean they just beat Tennessee, and as much as we like to dunk on Tennessee because it is kind of funny, okay, Tennessee's a hell of a lot better team than Eastern Michigan. Okay, Eastern Michigan.
It's Western Michigan.
Western Michigan. Okay, not much difference there.
No. Not at all. Western Michigan's 2-1, ass kicked by Michigan, and they beat Illinois State. So, yeah. Now they shouldn't even be playing with Pittsburgh, and at Heinz Field. I mean, there's no way this should have happened.
It shouldn't have. And Pitt has a team that could win their division in the ACC. They are talented enough to do so, and they still very well may do that. But I mean now, if they get there at 11-1 with their one loss being to Western Michigan, or they get there at 10-2 and their other loss was to I don't know, North Carolina or something, but they still managed to win that division, they're going to look at themselves and say, how the hell do we lose this game to Eastern or Western Michigan and make it to where this game is going to be like obviously winning conference title is very meaningful, but if they win that game, they're not going to get the prize that maybe they could have received, potentially. I mean, this is a bad loss, and it's probably indicative of more very head-scratching losses to come. Typically, you don't see teams lose to a group of 5 teams that are not on the radar and then do well later. It's just not a common trend, obviously. So the fourth one is Gus Malzahn, the head coach of UCF.
You almost said Auburn, yeah.
I don't understand. Like, the more things change, right, the more things stay the same.
Right.
I mean, how are you losing to Louisville?
It's a head scratcher.
It's a head scratcher. You also, and you inherit another All-American caliber quarterback. And the guy doesn't look the same as he has in the past. Okay, he's already thrown 2 pick sixes this year. And now I've heard he's gotten hurt, so their season's probably in big trouble. Yeah, Dylan Gabriel's injury, broken clavicle. That's probably the year then.
Wonder who's behind him. I guess we'll know soon, right?
I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
Let me see here.
Dylan Gabriel, if you're listening to this podcast, get into the transfer portal.
One question about Gus Malzahn. If the wheels come completely off, I mean, UCF's used to winning. Their fan base, if there really are fans, I don't know. I've never met any fans online. I do see that they fill their stadium up for big games.
Yeah.
What happens if the wheels come completely off? You think this could get ugly for Gus quick?
Well, I mean, I don't think UCF is in a position right now. They don't have a strong AD at the moment. They lost Danny White, obviously, to Tennessee. Danny White's, by the way, doing a good job up there in Knoxville, inheriting a complete clusterfuck, fixing some things up there. But for me, I don't know how quickly they'll pull the trigger on Gus. Will they give him 2 years, 3 years to figure it out? The question for me is if the season falls flat on its face, right now, because they're probably not going to get Dylan Gabriel back, will he get a pass for that? You know what I mean? That's probably my suspicion is he'll get a pass. He'll get another chance. And if Dylan Gabriel leaves in the transfer portal, next year's going to be really bad for him, and then he's probably gone. Because I don't think UCF will tolerate it the way that because UCF is trying to go to the Big 12. When they go to the Big 12, they want to immediately impact the league, right? They don't want to come into the Big 12 and be Iowa State's bitch.
What's the word on that? Is Oklahoma and Texas, are they still supposed to be there till 2025?
So, I mean, that's what all the, legal documents and things are going to say until it's not going to say those things.
What do you mean?
I expect.
You think ESPN's going to jump in and pay this?
I mean, I think that the schools would find a way to make it happen if necessary. There's a lot of ways to make this work. I do think that, we saw how quickly everything is developed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't foresee everyone just saying fuck it and actually holding on. All these teams want to get there now. I think UCF, I think those teams will leave the AAC well before now. West Virginia certainly did. West Virginia was supposed to join the Big 12 on a later date, and they did not. Same thing with Texas A&M and Missouri to the SEC, right? Like, these calendars tend to get sped up because these breakups are not pretty. They're not. I mean, every single Big 12 team is going to give Oklahoma and Texas probably their best game that they can this year because of this situation.
So
it's going to be ugly. It's an ugly breakup.
Tell me this: when is BYU and Houston and gang supposed to come in?
I believe that it's said that it's the 2024 season is the year, or 2023 or 2024 is what they're supposed to do. I believe all of them will come in 2022, and I believe Oklahoma and Texas will be in the SEC in 2022. The SEC is releasing a schedule today, but come on.
Yeah, I've already seen that. That's not going to be a problem. If they end up bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, they will issue new schedules. It's not going to be a problem.
Right.
But
they're doing everything by the book, so that way there's no legal ramifications of, you tried to get them earlier, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
So your thought is that they're waiting, hoping that the 12 will fold or something and save them a bundle?
Well, I think that was probably the original plan. Now they realize it's not going to work out like that. I think the SEC and the schools and ESPN would all be very happy to work out a negotiation. All of a sudden, also, the Big 12 is no longer issuing public statements about ESPN. They're now saying stuff like ESPN. They're now saying things along the lines of ESPN will, we'll do all of our stuff behind closed doors and all this other stuff. So to me, it seems like they're going to quietly work out some sort of compromise that kind of tries to make everybody happy. That's probably my best guess on this scenario.
Okay. Well,
probably the Big 12 will use whatever dirt they have on ESPN to leverage a good deal for their league, and it'll all get worked out in the end.
I would love to see it get worked out without Oklahoma and Texas having to come off that much cash, because that's a lot of fucking money.
It's likely that the money is going to come from what's owed to Texas through the Longhorn Network. That's my guess. I think that avenue makes the most sense.
What happens to the Longhorn Network?
I mean, theoretically, it's positioned well to turn into SEC Network 2.
You know what? Or the SEC West Network.
Yeah.
Or whatever. If we've got pods, then they could just separate them somehow. But yeah, that would be that'd be cool. And with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, it's going to create enough more to actually have two networks going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, and I got a hard time for this when I talked about it. This whole concept, of OU and Texas begged to join the Big 12, the SEC is silliness. Like, the SEC has courted these two schools for decades. They've wanted them. They're the prize jewel that was on the table, that people thought might have been available, Everyone's wanted those guys to be in their league. And the SEC made it happen, okay? Oklahoma and Texas finally said, all right, and we're enough's enough making, pebbles compared to the money that we should be making with our brands. And, they worked it out together, and now they're there. And the SEC wants them and probably would like them more than Oklahoma and Texas need to be in the SEC at the end of the day. So the SEC is probably going to be willing to fork up some money as well, because the amount of money that they're going to make on the crackback is just ridiculous. I'm sure you got to watch that Oklahoma-Nebraska game this weekend, and though it was closer than I suspected it would be, that was a really awesome game, for that rivalry to be renewed on such a brilliant and old school game. What are your thoughts? Because you saw a lot more of them than I did.
I watched a little bit of the first quarter, and I watched the entire fourth quarter. Nebraska definitely came to play. They wanted that game so bad. You could tell that Scott Frost had definitely got in their head that week, and they understood the importance of how big this rivalry once was, and they really wanted to go home with a W. Wasn't in the cards, but they definitely came to play. I don't know how good Nebraska is, but it was just one of those days. It happens like that sometimes. I don't know what it means about Oklahoma or Nebraska. What's your thoughts?
Well, I honestly, I don't know what it means for Nebraska. I mean, because no rest for the weary, right? They get a ranked team on the road again this week.
Yep.
In Michigan State, a game that I probably think they would have won if they were going to Nebraska, going home and playing that game. But that's tough to go from Oklahoma to Michigan in a week. That's brutal. And a letdown for not getting the dub. So I don't know. That'll be tough for them. But if they can win, that'll show quite a bit of mental resilience in my mind. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. I mean, I guess the thing that makes Nebraska look so bad this year is just their opener against Illinois.
And it was such a clunky and fluky loss.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, for anyone who watched
we're going to have to see a lot more of Nebraska to know exactly what we're talking about here.
Right.
But they definitely played their ass off in Norman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I felt it was definitely more of a Nebraska playing up than Oklahoma playing poorly, and I really thought their game plan was good. They slowed the game down. Oklahoma only had 8 true possessions in that ball game. I mean, how many times are you going to think that's going to happen in 2021 where Oklahoma's only going to get the ball 8 times? But it magnifies every throw, every play whenever games have that few possessions. And Oklahoma wasn't able to execute the way you would expect an Oklahoma team to do on offense. Defensively, I thought they played pretty well overall, but that secondary is going to need some help. They gave up some plays that are just not becoming of a top team. But as a whole, I really thought that game more told us that this rivalry meant a lot more than people realized. I was concerned going in, that perhaps, this game wouldn't live up to its intensity because it had been, a decade. But it absolutely, pre-game to the end of the game, it was intense. The teams hit each other hard. They played each other with it felt like an Oklahoma-Nebraska game, man. They played hard. They played with respect. It was just one of those kind of days where those two it almost felt like a storybook to me as a person who's understood that rivalry, and I'm a little young to understand it to the extent of some of my elders, but I was born into the Big 12, and the Big 12, Oklahoma, Nebraska didn't play every year.
Yeah, I know. It was an annual game when I was young, and it was always a huge game. And they most of the time they were both in the top 10, if not the top 5, and that was around the 80s. But just a huge game. The 1971 game's considered one of the biggest games in the history of college football. So
it was an excellent game. Yeah, no, it's lots of 1 versus 2 matchups. Certainly this one won't be remembered because, obviously Nebraska, because of their loss to Illinois, even if they were to turn in their season around and win the rest of their games, I mean, that's not going to have the same value. But
no, but I think it would help a little bit. I think it would get people to look at the game a little more. Do you guys go to Lincoln next year?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes, and I plan on making the trip out there because I'm not sure how many opportunities I'll have to do that. So
right.
Well, oh man, Scott Frost could find himself on there if his teammate gets embarrassed. Since we're on that Nebraska train, if they're embarrassed against Michigan State next week, that they deserve to be on there because, losing might be one thing, okay, but if they get embarrassed, that'll be real bad. Let's see. I mean, Brian Kelly and Paul Christ are in a duel there where something could happen. Jimbo Fisher, I think he might have a rough day. And Dabo's going to NC State.
Yep.
That could be an interesting one.
Well, now hold on now. Somebody told me earlier today or yesterday that because NC State lost to Mississippi State on the road, that means there's no way Clemson could lose to them. And I was just thinking, yeah, I wish that logic worked in college football, because it don't. It doesn't work
that
like
doesn't
that.
mean it.
It don't mean a
doesn't
damn thing. No. All right.
Doesn't mean anything.
All right, Tim. I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
All right, have a good one.
Hulu has live TV? Hulu has live sports?
Well, yes. Hulu does have live sports.
Time's up. I need your answer now.
Hulu has live game shows.
Correct. Hulu also has...
Hulu has live dating shows.
With over 75 live channels.
I choose Hulu.
Woo! Hulu.
Flip like cable, stream like Hulu. Time to have Hulu plus live TV.
They've won the biggest championship, and that's a championship of life.
The Life Championship Top 10 is brought to you by
Bad month tires. Guaranteed for the first 48 hours, but then you're on your own. Also by Doyle Hargrave Construction. He ain't fucking around, he gets shit done. Quality craftsmanship at an affordable price.
Here's your Life 10 for this week.
Number 10, the LSU Tigers. Number 9, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Number 8, the Miami Hurricanes. Number 7, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Number 6, the Florida Gators. Number 5, the Oklahoma Sooners. Number 4, the Auburn Tigers. Number 3, the UCLA Bruins. Number 2, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And the number 1 team for this week, the Clemson Tigers.
Here's your 2021 Life Championship voters. Hunter Shainko, Jamie Gibson, Jay Fields, Large Marge Mahoney, Kyle Gollick, Jerry Looney, Justin Brindley, Alex Bryan, and Dr. Balls, Robert Arthur. Let's thank them all for taking time out of their busy schedules to give us their opinions. Please direct all anger at them. Buy the Life Championship t-shirt today for the low price of $23.49. You will never find a shirt like this again in your entire life. So don't be a tightwad. Cheap motherfucker. Buy this shirt today.
You can support this podcast by buying awesome Smacking Off the Podcast merchandise. You can buy our merchandise direct from our Spreadshop store at smackology.myspreadshop.com. Visit it today.
Next, we have the battle of the smacking off gurus between Walter Bryan and Justin Pike. However, Walter Bryan could not be part of the segment due to a sudden change in his schedule. But he sent in his picks beforehand, so that we could pass them along to our listeners for the sake of the segment. Everyone please give Walter a big
fuck off
for missing this segment, and let's all hope that he loses, as a punishment for not being here.
Smacking Off the Podcast's Battle of the Gurus.
SMU is going to TCU.
TCU.
All right, Walter Bryan also has TCU. LSU at Mississippi State.
Give me the cowbell.
Mike Leach pissed off.
It's gonna. Do you think they're gonna win that game, Shannon?
It's if there's a game that Mississippi State's, and I don't even know if this is a game that they're not supposed to win. I mean, really, again, we don't know who LSU is this year. They're not great. We know that.
Lost to UCLA.
They did.
Like I predicted.
UCLA is still hanging in there, sort of.
Well, and Ogeron get fired if they win like 4 games this year?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, LSU's in the same uncomfortable territory as Auburn is now, as far as paying former head coaches and the millions of dollars that they would be paying former head coach. I mean, Les Miles, they finally got to stop paying him. Now that a lot of the stuff has come out about Les Miles and retroactively with his time at LSU and the Title IX lawsuit.
Walter's going LSU on this one.
Yeah.
Clemson at NC State.
As bad as I want to pick NC State, I'm going Clemson in a field goal game.
Walter is also going Clemson. Nebraska at Michigan State.
Michigan State by 3 touchdowns.
All right. Walter.
Huge win.
Walter's going Michigan State as well. Tennessee at Florida.
Oh, this hurts. This hurts. My heart wants to take my balls. But I'm going Florida by a field goal.
By a field goal? No. Go back and say that again. By a field goal?
By a field goal. 24-21.
Really?
Walter is going Florida as well on that one. West Virginia at Oklahoma.
Oklahoma didn't look so good last week. We talked about that with Timothy Bailey earlier. Against Nebraska.
That's tough. Can we come back to that one last?
Yeah, you're gonna have to pray on that one.
Because I don't know what Walter Bryan did, and that's tough.
All right.
I think I already know which way he went on this one, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm right.
I'm gonna go with it. I'm not gonna be that guy. West Virginia's a decent team. They can score the ball, but Oklahoma's gonna bounce back. Oklahoma will win. Pencil me in for Oklahoma.
Walter also has Oklahoma.
I knew it.
All right, we've got UCLA going to the mighty Stanford Cardinals.
UCLA. That should be a pretty easy game.
And Walter also has UCLA.
Wow. So the only one we have different right now is Mississippi State.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. This is an interesting game right here. Rutgers, who is they're very improved. I actually watched a little bit of them.
Tennessee's almost former head coach. Go ahead.
Yep.
Greg Schiano.
Yep. Rutgers at Michigan.
If it was at Rutgers, there might be a shot, but Michigan's going to win.
Yeah, Michigan's playing at a completely different level this year. We'll see if we're gonna know who Michigan is this year, and really if we're gonna know who Rutgers is this year, this is gonna be the game to watch.
I guarantee you that this is the toughest team that Michigan will have played to date. That doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I would say so. I agree with that.
All right, Texas A&M and Arkansas at Jerry's World.
That's a tough one. I lost a lot of money on the Arkansas-Texas game a couple weeks ago. Y'all remember that one?
I do.
Took about $1,000 hit on that game. I took Texas on the money line, and I took them on the spread. So I had to lay a lot of juice. Fuck Arkansas.
That's stripper and blow money right there.
Fuck
$1,000.
Woo. I'll go to A&M. It'll be a good game. That's going to be a good game, though.
Okay, Walter also has Texas A&M. All right, and the final game of this, Notre Dame and Wisconsin. That's a neutral site game in Chicago, Soldier Field.
Yeah, give me Wisconsin on that for sure.
Okay. And Walter has Wisconsin as well. All right, and the tiebreaker is how many points will Rutgers score?
Against me. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say 21.
All right. So Walter Bryan has 20.
Oh.
So the closest to to the correct score without going over gets it, unless you both go over, and then it's going to be the person closest.
We have all the same picks, right?
All except for LSU and Michigan State. Mississippi State.
So whoever wins the Mississippi State. LSU.
Yeah, so we didn't really need the tiebreaker, but
right.
Yeah, that is the tiebreaker.
Wow, that's a huge game.
So really, that's the weird part about this, because all of your whole entire picks really rest on one game. There's only you only have to watch one game to know how this thing's going to go down between the two of y'all.
True story.
Crazy.
What time does that game come on?
I don't think I've got that on here. Let me look it up real quick.
62 beautiful Arlington, Virginia.
In fact, I think it's probably a shade warmer today because I have a flannel shirt on tonight. I'm like, it's brisk. Very brisk.
Yeah, the high here tomorrow is only 73.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's love-making weather out there. You can't get light weather like that, you ain't got no game.
Madison Square Garden, November 6th. Colby Covington against Usman, the biggest fight card of the year. I'll be there.
Ooh, that does sound fun.
Oh, my God.
You're going to be in New York, going to the Big Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
But you know what's nuts about it? You're not allowed to get to the game unless you're double vaccinated, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go.
Very nice.
Because I'll be around with all the vaccinated people.
I mean, you still might get the COVID, though.
You could.
Well, no, because we're all vaccinated.
Well, no, because you still get the COVID with the vaccine.
They call them breakthrough. They call them breakthrough cases, but I'm seeing a lot of them. A lot of celebrities. But anyway,
man, there's been so many. COVID has taken so many celebrities over the past couple of years. It's insane.
Sorry, that is a noon kickoff for you, Justin. LSU
and
Mississippi State.
Well, I guess I'll start drinking about 11:30 Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you get to drink early. You get an early buzz. You'll probably have to take a nap, and then get up and watch some back games.
With that being said, my lock of the week: Mississippi State over LSU. I feel really good about this.
And that's your Justin Pike lock of the week.
That's a good one. LSU ain't shit this year.
I agree with that.
I don't know. I don't think they're as awful as everybody keeps saying that they are. I mean, they're bad, but I don't know. I guess we're going to find out this weekend. I mean, this is definitely the game to find out absolutely once and for all if LSU has any gas in the tank left. Because if they can't win this game, it's pretty much over for them.
And you're going to find out if Arkansas is for real.
Yep.
Because
of course, A&M really hasn't looked good. A&M's looked terrible.
But A&M played a good Colorado.
Looked really good against Texas. And that wasn't a horrible Texas team that they beat.
You didn't just say Colorado was good, did you?
They're not bad. They have a really good defense.
They're not awful. I mean, they're middling.
Yeah. I don't know.
They beat UAB.
I don't know. I got a feeling that Arkansas is going to win this game.
I kind of do too. And then we start the conversation, a very, very early conversation about Jimbo Fisher. Because I mean, he's been there a while and hadn't really done a whole hell of a lot if you think about it.
He's cashed some pretty big checks.
He has.
So that's one thing he's done.
He lives a lot better than I do, so I can't hate.
He just signed one of the biggest. He signed a really huge contract to leave there, didn't he? Well, hell, they were paying him good at Florida State, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, he made good money there. Was among one of the highest paid coaches in the land.
That's insane.
I don't know what went wrong at Florida State with him. He got into it with some of the big names there, the big names that you don't know.
Right. Well, the thing is, you're getting all the recruits at Florida State. You're playing in the ACC. Why the hell would you come to the SEC where it's a fucking bloodbath? You know what I mean?
You really wouldn't.
Man, SEC West is brutal right now. It is just somebody. There's going to be a couple teams that are going to fall that everybody's just all up in arms about. Arkansas may or may not be one of them. I don't know. Everybody's really high on Arkansas right now, and they've given every indication that they're for real this year. I don't know why, but bam.
Hey,
Justin.
what about Ole Miss?
Justin, that's what I was fixing to ask you. Do you want me to match you up with an Alabama fan next week?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Roll Tide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about all they can say. But I'm telling you one thing: Ole Miss is going to go up and down the fucking field on that Alabama defense. Up and down, up and down. I'm telling you.
You might be right, man. I mean, the lane train is rolling hard this year.
Ole Miss might not punt the whole game. And like, I'm not even being funny by saying that, but like, you can't stop Florida's offense. What are you gonna do against Ole Miss? Florida scored, what was it, the last touchdowns on their last 4 possessions in that Florida game.
Who do you want me to match you up with, Landon?
Yeah, put me on there with Landon. That's fun.
That'll be a fun segment.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Good night, y'all.
Hey.
Hey.
Cowbells. More cowbells.
Help to support and grow our podcast by purchasing great products through our affiliate link page. Go to smackology.life/support for all of our affiliate links. Thank you in advance for supporting the podcast.